Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Stress Management. Excuse me, one moment while I adjust my audio.
All right. To today's webinar, Stress Management, Real Tools for Work and Life Balance, presented by our sponsor, Heffernan. We're so happy you can join us. My name is Amanda Ramatar, and I will be your moderator today, and I will also be monitoring questions you may have during the session. Before we open up the session, let's review a couple of key items. All of the webinar materials we discuss can be found at the URL currently showing on your screen. I will be sharing this URL in a follow-up email, so don't feel like you need to write it down right now. If you have trouble with your internet connection during the webinar, we recommend leaving the presentation and logging back in. We do not control the audio. Your devices control the audio. So if you have audio difficulties, try adjusting the volume settings on your device. If the telephone line goes dead during the call, hang up and call back again to the same number. If all lines go dead, watch the on-screen chat box for an alternative call-in number. Feel free to ask questions or provide feedback by using the chat box or questions box during the webinar. If you are using a tablet, you may need to tap on the screen for the options bar to appear, then you can select the appropriate option. We may not respond immediately, but we will work your questions or feedback into the presentation. If we can't get to your comment or question during the session, we will be online afterwards to respond, or we may follow up in an email if we run completely out of time. You may also email us at moderator@aspenrmg.com for up to 48 hours after the webinar. This will be a 1-hour presentation. Questions and comments are very much encouraged throughout, and the presenter will be answering questions at the end. And lastly, we have a number of upcoming webinars covering a variety of topics, including those listed at the Heffernan webinar website. In addition, we are offering the mandatory preventing harassment training in English on June 20th this year. With that, let's begin today's webinar, Stress Management, Real Tools for Work and Life Balance. Our presenter today is Dr. Steve Albrecht. Dr. Albrecht is a trainer, author, and consultant specializing in complex HR issues and security concerns. He holds a doctorate in business administration, an MA in security management, a BS in psychology, and a BA in English. He is board certified in HR, security management, employee coaching, and threat management. He has written 24 books on business service leadership, security, and criminal justice subjects. Thank you for being with us today, Dr. Albrecht. Let me turn the controls over to you.
Great, thanks, Amanda, and thanks to the good folks at Heffernan and also the good folks at Aspen Risk Management Group. How are we looking on my slides, Amanda? Good?
I don't see the slides yet. Oh, they're there. Looks great.
Great. Thanks a lot. So thanks to Aspen Risk Management, especially Steve Thompson, my old friend, and Phaedra, and also Amanda for her support today. So this subject of stress management is one of my favorite things to teach because it is more holistic and more connected to you feeling better about yourself personally and professionally. It's also highly personal. So I'm not dictating to you how to run your life. I'm just giving you some ideas and suggestions about what has worked for me and what I have seen other people do to help them in terms of burnout personally and professionally, and also improve their relationships personally and professionally by managing their anger, managing their stress, and feeling better about their overall total health. This is not a religious conversation. I will mention Buddhism, which is kind of the root of mindfulness meditation, which I'll talk about. But it's not a religious discussion like that. It's just about how the Buddhists, many thousands of years ago, saw this idea of breathing and breath control as one of the primary ways to control your emotions, your anger, your fears, anxieties, things like that, and also to give yourself a little bit of a break as you go through your day. We'll talk about how you can just try to spend maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. We'll do a little quick practice session at the end of our time where we talk about mindfulness meditation a little bit with some breathing exercises. Amanda, we have some poll questions. I'm happy to see the response to those first.
Perfect. All right. So good stress is known as eustress and bad stress is known as distress. And it's a true or false question. I apologize for the typo in the your response section. So we usually like to get about 70% voted before we close the poll and share the results with everybody. No one's being graded, so please, we'd love your participation. Okay, we're almost at 70%. I'm gonna go ahead and close the polling question now and share the results with everybody. We have 62% who said true and 38% who said false. And the next question. A leading cause of job burnout is getting too much praise from your boss or coworkers. Great participation, everybody. Thank you. Awesome. So we're over 70% now. I'm going to close the polling question and share the results. And 94% said false, 6% said true. And last question. Sleep, diet, exercise, meditation, breath control, and a positive attitude are all connected to managing your stress level. Perfect. All right. So I'm going to close this. Share the results. 100% said true.
Great, thanks for that. Well, let's go back to the first one. Eustress, E-U-S-T-R-E-S-S, is positive stress, and distress, D-I-S, is negative stress. When you look at the difference between the two, it's also about context, isn't it? What scares you doesn't scare me. Some of you like roller coasters and scary movies and even jumping out of planes, things like I would never do or never go to. And then other things that don't frighten me, like speaking in front of large groups, would scare some people. So when we look at stress, it is contextual, it's personal, and it's also in the eye of the beholder, meaning some things which you find stressful, someone sitting next to you would not, and vice versa, even people in your own family. So eustress is positive stress, good things, right? A great birthday party would be eustress for some people, and distress for others, meaning people jump out from behind the couch and yell surprise, would be stressing for other people. The second one is kind of a goof on the idea that we don't get enough praise. That should be 100% is the answer we're looking for, which is praise is what makes people come to work. It makes people function better in their relationships when they are approved of by their family and partners and things like that. So I look at praise as something that especially managers and supervisors can bring more to their interactions with coworkers and employees, and also what we can do for each other in our personal lives. And then the last one is a lead up to a discussion I'm going to have with you with an acronym called BREADS: breathing, relaxation, exercise, attitude, diet, and sleep. You'll see the slide as we come up to it about the halfway point. BREADS focuses on these 6 issues. Breathing, right? Slowing down your breathing is a huge stress management tool. It oxygenates your brain. It keeps your head in the game. It keeps you away from having those kinds of fight or flight thoughts. It also keeps you out of that sort of tunnel vision, tunnel hearing issue that sometimes we get under stress. We don't hear people, we don't hear things and see things around us. So slowing down your breathing is a big part of our discussion. Relaxation is your ability to find some time in the day, even 5 minutes. And when people tell me they don't have enough time, I say, well, check your screen for how much social media you look at and try to find 5 minutes between social media engagements to simply do what every IT tech person I've ever met since the dawn of time has told us about fixing our devices, is to reboot and shut off your phone and reboot it, shut off your laptop, your desktop, your tablet, your laptop. To reboot it sometimes gives it a brand new feel. Well, the same thing for us in terms of relaxation is a 5 minute, and that should be our goal. Start at 5 minutes, right? And work up to perhaps 20 minutes of where you just sit and do nothing related to work or life in a safe place, quiet place with your eyes closed. You simply focus on your breathing for 5 minutes. And what that does is it reboots the mechanism, which is your brain. It gives us a new sense of ownership of our emotions, and it gives us a new sense of kind of energy, and it can be energizing. We'll talk about it. Exercise is really connected to stress in terms of burning calories and burning up some of our stressor feelings. It gives us this endorphins. I don't always subscribe to the runner's high philosophy. This weekend was the 25th anniversary of me running the San Diego inaugural rock and roll marathon in 1998 in June, the worst 5 hours of my life. Oprah ran faster than I did in that race. It was not a great day for me. But exercise in general helps us sleep. And you can see how when we look at the BREADS acronym in a little bit more detail, exercise is connected to sleep, and diet is connected to attitude, and all kinds of things that we're going to intermingle here, because each of those 6 things, breathing, relaxation, exercise, attitude, diet, sleep, are connected. Attitude, relentlessly positive. I am going to figure out a solution. We are going to figure out a way. This is going to pass. This tough time, I'm going to get through this and keep on going. Diet, certainly food is a drug. You can eat things that make you feel great. You can eat things that make you feel lousy. You can eat things that make you feel sick, especially if you have allergies. So food is definitely a drug. It changes your mood. And then the last one is really a hidden piece of stress management, which is sleep. And we are a sleep-deprived culture. Go to the movies and see how many people sleep, especially in the comfy chairs. See how many people fall asleep in front of the TV. See how many people fall asleep as soon as the airplane takes off. People nod off in meetings, not during mine, of course, but others. And when we look at sleep, we are a sleep-deprived culture, and it is part of healing for our brains. It is where we do the best sort of cleanup in our brains in terms of the neurotransmitters and healing our brains when we sleep. And so sleep is a big part of stress management as well. So we'll talk about all those things as we go forward, and I'm glad that you're with me here today. This is a Southwest Airlines flight. Everybody has their masks on wrong. Everybody is not listening to the flight attendants. This was a fatal accident on board a Southwest Airlines flight. A woman was sitting over the wing, and a piece of engine exploded and came through her window and struck and killed her, sadly. This event here is everybody's got their masks on wrong. So it goes back to a larger issue that I have, especially in my life as coming from first responder background and coming from a safety and security background, is that under stress, people do the wrong things and they don't make good decisions. Think about how you make decisions when you are angry or fearful or anxious or depressed or tired, or you are not functioning on enough sleep, you're not functioning on good food. Think of the issues that we have about stress when there's an emergency. It's very possible that people can't remember their own address for their building if they call 911 at the office. They can't remember their own house address in their building when they are standing in front of their home. They have to go outside and get the address off the building. Sometimes people can't remember their own address under stress. I've seen this in people get in car accidents. They can't tell the dispatcher where they are. They can't tell if their car gets stolen. They have no idea what the license plate number is. Under stress, people have a lot of trouble sometimes making decisions. So managing your stress with breathing, managing your stress with awareness, managing your stress with the other things we talked about, diet and exercise and sleep, all come together in better solutions, better responses in normal situations, and even in this one, abnormal situations. So this here is called a fractal, F-R-A-C-T-A-L. Fractals exist in nature, or they exist on computer screens, or they are created by movie makers or people that are graphic artists. This one comes from somebody that's a graphic artist, but fractals exist in nature, especially as snowflakes and as leaf patterns and things like that. We see them everywhere, and they're beautiful. So a study was done in Germany. I just got back from there a couple weeks ago, that suggested that looking at fractals actually lowered your stress. Looking at fractals on your screen, on your mobile device, on your laptop, desktop, tablet, whatever it is. So find some screensaver shots of fractals. Find some beautiful, pretty, moving ones. Maybe sometimes they're moving in terms of the physical movement on the screen, or sometimes they're captured as you see here. Fractals lower our blood pressure when we look at them. Fractals can help us with stress management. Guess what else does that? Being around pets. Especially those of you that are big fans like I am of dogs. I have 6, right? Because 7 would be too many and 5's not enough. Fish is kind of the same sort of peaceful, fractal gazing sort of a thing that people do when they look at fish in fish tanks. It's very similar. So think about those things which you can look at in your life which give you joy. Think of those things which can instantly cause you to feel peaceful. Maybe it's pictures of your family, your kids, your pets. Maybe it's pictures of places that you have been on vacation or that you want to go. Keep those things around you. When I'm on bumpy airplane flights, lots of turbulence and the things bouncing all over the place, I look at pictures of my dogs, and that creates sort of an oxytocin, sort of a chemical relaxation for me that feels good, even in that stressful situation. So how we expose ourselves to imagery goes a long way towards managing our stress. Hurtful, painful images, and movie makers know this, horror films and dramas and scary things, right, can make us feel anxious and afraid. And peaceful and supportive and loving and music, things like that, that makes us feel good has a big impact on our mood. And so start to, as part of stress management, think about what you encounter, what you absorb, what you look at on your phones, in your life, and stay away from those kinds of images that upset you. If it's political, if it's something related to people in pain or animals or in pain, don't look at that stuff. And what we use to distract ourselves in terms of our phones can have an impact on our mood. And so start picking out those things. It's pets, it's fractals, it's beautiful imagery that make you feel good, that can be your go-to, and especially in times of stress, to give yourself a little break. So the Siddhartha, who is the founder of Buddhism, said, let us be thankful for if we didn't learn a lot today, at least we learned a little. And if we didn't learn a little, at least we didn't get sick. And if we got sick, at least we didn't die. So let us be thankful. I like a little sarcasm in my Buddhists. This is a great quote of kind of a sarcastic response to how do we see the world. And a lot of what we will talk about in terms of the attitude piece of stress management is about beliefs, and it's also about positive affirmations, positive self-talk. Think of all the voices you hear during the day. The one that you listen to the closely is the one that's your own. And sometimes that internal conversation is, I'm fat, I'm lazy, I'm stupid, I'll never amount to anything. People are going to be more successful than me. I'll never find a relationship. All the things that people say that is negative self-talk. A couple things about negative self-talk. One, we listen to negative self-talk way too much. And I'm not saying that, the whole world is rainbows and that kind of a thing. But if you look at the choice between positive self-talk versus negative self-talk, sometimes we can predict failure based on negative self-talk. Professionally, you might say, well, this job interview is coming up. I'm probably not going to get it. They're going to choose somebody else. They don't like me, or they don't like my work, or there's other people more qualified than me, or I don't have the experience they're looking for, so I probably won't get the job. Well, you go into the interview with that attitude and approach. Guess what? You probably don't get the job. Relentlessly positive attitude suggests, I will figure this out. I will know the answers to the questions they give me. There's nothing I can't handle. I'm well equipped for this job. I'm ready for the challenge. Let's go do it. Better alternative? Possibly. Yes, in terms of the potential solution. That goes back to negative self-talk. The media, social media and regular media, and my best friend works for CBS News and my daughter works for CBS News, and so I have kind of a feel for what these folks are all about, is about making you feel bad. And so watching the news is part of our stress accumulation throughout the day. The world's a horrible, dangerous place, right? And in parts it is, but most of it is not. The second thing to think about is, can I go at either from a social media perspective or a regular media on a news diet? News diet says I'm going to limit the amount of things that I see on an hourly, regular, all the time basis that's negative, that's full of conflict, that's about people doing bad things to each other, who's going to the emergency room, who's going to jail, who died, what horrible things are happening in our country or in other countries. It's all part of this negative self-talk. And so, I'm not saying that you look at a big pile of horse manure and say, well, I'm going to dig around in here because there must be a pony in here somewhere. What I am saying is going on a news diet can go a lot towards helping your sense of self and your attitude. So think about what people that teach meditation, and I'm going to foreshadow this for you, call your private getaway place. And your private getaway place is that place where you can go inside your head. Maybe you've been there, maybe you have not. Maybe you want to go there. Maybe it exists in real life, or maybe it does not exist in real life, but you'd like it to be. It's a place that's safe and peaceful. Nothing bad's ever happened there. Nothing bad will ever happen there. And you can go there visually in your head. And you take that 2-minute, 3-minute, 5-minute vacation to reboot the mechanism, which is your head, and come back to work and to relationships in life with full sense of energy and a little bit more maybe emotional control. That's what the private getaway place is all about. So start thinking as we are moving towards our practice discussion here about your private getaway place. So here's what my clinician friends tell me. I work a lot with clinicians. My degree's in psychology, but I'm not a psychologist, but I work a lot with clinicians. And they tell me the most successful people have one foot in the present and one foot in the future. And they tell me that people that tend to be miserable have one foot in the present and the other foot stuck where? In the past. Meaning that they are stuck on what happened to them in high school. They're stuck on what happened to them in college. They're stuck on what happened to them in grade school. They're stuck on what happened to them when they were 8 or when they were 15 or they were 22. Now, it's not that the future is better than the present. It's just that the sense of The future tends to be more positive, and being stuck in the past is not a positive outlook if that's all you ever think about. Look at that second piece, pleasure versus happiness. Which one should you strive for? Well, buying a new something at the mall could give you pleasure. Eating something could give you pleasure in a nice restaurant, things like that. But happiness is kind of a longer term goal, isn't it? What do I do to make myself happy? It's my relationships, the people around me, it's the work that I do, it's my spiritual life if I have one, it's my physical health, those types of things. Talked about the importance of self-talk. Negative self-talk drives us into depression. It drives us into anger and anxiety. It makes us feel worthless and weak, and it is not useful. So for me, my whole function all the time is to say, what can I find? And that's a stress management piece. What can I find about the particular situation that I'm in, which is pretty good or better than I expected or going to get better? That fourth point there, how do you find a spot, a time that's safe and quiet and peaceful, not driving your car with your eyes closed, right? But how do you find a place that's safe and quiet and peaceful on your break at work, in your lunch hour, sitting in the car with the air conditioning on? I do this sometimes between training classes, where you just simply try to find 5 minutes to focus just on your breathing. You don't change it, you don't speed it up, you don't slow it down, you just focus on your breathing. Set your watch or your cell phone. At the end of 5 minutes, collect yourself, feel re-energized, get back to whatever you're doing. Look at that, second to the last point. Are you really doing what you really want to do? And that comes from Tony Robbins. I'm not a huge Tony Robbins guy because he's sort of happy-clappy for me, but what Robbins said is what you want to do is what you are actually doing. Meaning, if you wanted to go back to school and finish your degree, you'd drive down to the school or you'd register online and you'd buy the books and you'd go to class, right? If you want to get back in shape, you would not talk about it. You would go to the gym and sign up, or you would download a program on your tablet or phone and start working out at the house if that's what you really want to do. So think of how many times people around you say, you know, I wish I could do this or I'd like to do that, but I don't really have the time. They're doing what they want to do, right? And so what I try to say in my life is I will stop talking about doing something that I want to do and move towards doing that thing. Not set up goals, but set up systems. I turned 60 in February. And so part of my 60th birthday resolution was every day I will earn my shower. Every day I will either do my 10,000 steps or I'll go to the gym or both. If I'm not going to go to the gym or do my 10,000 steps, I will do something in terms of careful eating that makes it my health more top of mind than it has been in the years before. Because you can have all the money in the world, as Steve Jobs proved, and if you don't have your health, then it doesn't matter. And so your first priority could be spiritual, your first priority could be your family, your first priority could be your profession, your career, great. But your ultimate priority that trumps all those is your physical health, right? Last one, can small changes make a big difference? They can. Just walking the extra 100 feet from the parking lot to the door of your office can give you a couple extra steps. Cutting your portions in half can give you a little bit of change in terms of your diet. Spending positive time with positive people, a little bit at a time in terms of how you spend your time away from social media can make a big difference over time. So we look at stress as one of those things that is a necessary stimulus of life. If we didn't have it, life would be pretty boring. In fact, we may not survive as a species if we didn't have it. If it is unmanageable, it can create distress. And if it is unmanageable and it creates physical pain and emotional pain for us, it's not good. But a quick story. Experiment they did many years ago, I think it was in Tucson, they built this biosphere, right? They had these bio-astronauts or bionauts or whatever they called them. It was men and women wearing jumpsuits that were living in this big biosphere, and the biosphere had plants and water and trees and food and animals, and they were attempting to live off the land in this experiment. I don't know if they were doing it to sort of replicate what we might do on other planets, but the function was to have these people live in a controlled environment. Well, guess what? The trees all kept dying. And they had food and plant water, a good plant food and good water, and the soil was good and had all the nutrients. The trees kept dying. They couldn't figure out why. They had enough sunshine coming through the biosphere. What they figured out was there was no wind inside the biosphere. The wind is what makes trees shift a little bit, and as a result, they grow deeper roots. So trees that fall over don't have that sense of connectedness to the ground because they're not put under resistance. So wind, resistance, right, good for the trees. So for us, a little bit of stress, useful. It makes us think more clearly. It makes us think faster and sharper. Too much, not good, right? Too much stress, certainly not good. For a lot of us, stress is a comfort zone shift. It is a change in our normal order. It is something that we come across, a car accident, a health issue immediately, then ourselves or our family, some huge issue or catastrophe at work, something that happens to one of our family members that's catastrophic. It's a huge comfort zone shift away from our normal patterns. The most successful people don't predict the future, but they do say, I need to be prepared for anything that happens in my life, and I'm going to have just as much energy and courage for the good things as I need for the not so good things. And we talked about negative stress, distress, right, and positive stress. It's all kind of contextual. If you love roller coasters and scary movies, then it's not distressful for you. It is for me. Right? It's all contextual. And look at these three things where stress is connected: biological, cognitive, and emotional. Stress is a biological shift in us. It creates adrenaline, movement in us about scary or stressful situations. It dumps cortisol into our stomachs, which is a chemical which can give us pot bellies, right? It is so tied to thinking that too much stress, people lock down, they freeze up. They say, I blacked out, I blanked out, I couldn't remember what to do, I couldn't remember my own phone number, I couldn't remember the phone number of my spouse or partner in this emergency situation, I just blacked out. And it's also an emotional reaction related to feelings, right? Positive and negative feelings have a kind of a stressful response to us, because even positive things jack up our heart rate. Even positive things give us adrenaline. Even positive things give us a change in our biology. And certainly negative things, those things really double down, don't they? So those three things: biological, cognitive, and emotional reaction. So think about where you feel stress typically during the day. Do you grind your teeth, which your dentists love? Do you have low back issues, which our chiropractors love, right? Neck and shoulders. Do you get a physical pain that's related to headaches or muscle aches? Is there a certain part of your body which seems to be a stress collector? How about your energy level? Is that something that you feel drained at the end of the day? And some of it comes from interactions with our bosses, colleagues, coworkers, customers, taxpayers, visitors, people we provide services to, and certainly going home as well. Sometimes the commute from the office to the house is useful for us to sort of de-stress from one environment into the positive of the other. Sometimes people don't want to go home and see what's going on at the house because there's a lot of stress there as well. So interactions with people leads me to the conversation that sometimes I think we have to fire folks in our personal and professional lives, and it's hard to do in your professional life, but in your personal life, say they're toxic, that make me feel bad. I think of the people you talk to that are relatives of yours that you don't want to talk to, and you say, oh, when their name comes up on my phone, I just pretend like I'm not around, right? Those are people that we want to minimize our contact with because of their stress creators and their energy drainers, right? As opposed to people that are loving and supportive and helpful for you. I have some people in my life that I've been friends with for 40 and 50 years that we still talk all the time, and it's awesome. And in your life, you say, who are the people that I can count on personally and professionally that help me with my life and help me with my stress, as opposed to those people I can discard because they've always been negative to me and they make me feel bad. So here's the magic chair. People sit in the magic chair too much. They look at their phones in the magic chair, they eat in the magic chair, they drink alcohol in the magic chair, right? All things in moderation. They watch TV and movies in the magic chair. They binge on Netflix in the magic chair. The problem with the magic chair is it's tough to leave the magic chair because it's comfy and safe and it makes no demands on you. And when people in your family come over and say, hey, let's go walk the dog, you go, I'm tired. I had a long day. Leave me alone. Hey, let's go to that new Chinese restaurant around the corner and get some food. You go, just bring me back something. I don't want to get up. Didn't I tell you I had a hard day? What happens in the magic chair is that you sit in there until you become sort of in a coma, right? And people around you continue their lives sometimes without you, which is to your detriment. So the solution to not sitting in the magic chair all the time is to say, I'm going to spend a little bit of time in the magic chair just to de-stress when I get home, but then I'm going to get up and engage with everybody else, my dogs, my cats, my folks, my kids, my spouse, partner, whoever that I'm around in my environment, so that the magic chair doesn't become the place where I sit for 6 or 8 hours after I come home. Now, I get it, during football season, I can sit in the magic chair for a long time. But when I look at my life in terms of the people I want to engage with, it's the magic chair is not good for our relationships. It may feel comfy at the time, but what it does is it creates an environment where we don't want to leave it, and that's not healthy. So look at this collection of stressors that you have in your personal life and your professional life. We'll start with the professional life, your workload, your schedule, interactions that you have with people that could be toxic or painful, difficult, face-to-face, over the phone, over the internet, emails, being harassed or bullied at work, feeling burnt out or demotivated. That kind of sense that people talk about absenteeism is now presenteeism, where you just sort of mail it in. Decisions that you make are not good under stress because you are not focused on the broader perspective. You get sort of tunnel vision. You feel like the environment is toxic physically too, as well. It could be too hot, too cold, not a fun place to work in terms of the environment, too loud. Emails, calls, and meetings tends to be stressors for people, just the barrage of those things. And the last one's really important as well. Can't say no. When I say no, I feel guilty, or my boss makes me feel guilty, or my colleagues make me feel guilty. Sometimes you just have to say, you know what? I redecided. I know I was going to work on that project and I said I would, but I've redecided I'm not going to do it. And that's my phrase for stress management. I redecided. But look at personally as well, family and in-laws. I talk to my clinician friends. What are the things that bring people to marriage and family therapy counseling, right? Family and in-laws, spouse and partner, kids, conflicts, money and bills, unexpected money and bills, car and home repairs. We just bought a new refrigerator in our house because the other one started to die, and there's $2,000 right there. Illness and pain, especially in other people or in yourself, especially chronic illness, especially really, really significant illness. Toxic friendships, even people around you that you don't want to be around, but you feel guilted into because they're relatives. And a lot of this can lead to depression. And if we look at what clinicians talk about, that anger turned inward, unmanaged anger, stressful anger, chronic anger, not anger that's managed, turns inward, is depression. And depression is dangerous. It's dangerous to the person that has it because it is tough on your personal life, your sense of worth. The suicidality in this country is through the roof, especially for young people. The numbers are startling. So for depression, we have medication, we have cognitive behavioral therapy. Those are useful, right? But also it's about relationships and positive people and feeling connected to our communities, which which COVID and the pandemic really harmed our ability to reach out and be connected to other people, not just electronically, but physically as well. So let's talk briefly about Employee Assistance Program, EAP. I'm a big fan. I've been myself personally. Employee Assistance Program is typically a 5 to 6, 3 to 5, 3 to 7 sessions for free, which is part of your medical benefits, which is part of your employee benefit plan. You work for a public sector or private sector. Very useful for the things that you see on the screen here in terms of the personal and professional stressors that we all face: health, financial, legal, marital, depression, pet loss. I mean, for me, my pets are some of the most important things, above my daughter in the world. Quitting smoking, blended families, Alzheimer's in your parents, cancer in your family are all horrible issues which can be helped through a caring, empathic, professional, guided discussion for several sessions to feel like you have some hope and choices. And I'm a big fan of EAP. I make referrals to them all the time in my workplace violence and threat assessment cases. But I also think personally they've done a lot for me, and I recommend it to you if you've had some issues and concerns where you've been thinking about EAP. But one of the reasons that people don't go is they think it's not confidential. It is. They think there's going to be some kind of report. There's not. They think their boss or peers are going to find out. They do not. Especially for men, there's a big stigma about reaching out for help, which you have to get past. I think tough guys, and I would consider myself a tough guy, reach out for help to make sure that they're living a full life and not putting themselves at risk for depression or other problems. Some people worry that if they find out you're going to EAP, they're gonna put you on a desk or take you out of your job, or you won't get to do your usual job duties because they don't trust you. But some people don't know that EAP exists, and if that's you in your organization, make some discreet inquiries and check your intranet or your website and say that HR is usually the one that manages EAP. Do they have an employee assistance program that I can reach out through an 800 number and connect myself? So if you don't know how to access the resource, talk to HR or look it up online. And if you don't know the resource exists, then do some research and figure out where the services are for your particular organization. So if EAP is not a personal thing for you, think about you could get a clinical referral to a mental health professional, psychologist, typically, a therapist, perhaps psychiatrist from your doctor or your health plan, your primary care. If you have a trusted colleague or friend who has been to counseling and can recommend their own provider, you may get pastoral counseling at your church. After the pandemic, lots of people went to Zoom for counseling, and I have seen this work. It's fun to be in the same room for the usefulness of it, but Zoom works. I prove this all the time. You know, I like doing live programs, but Zoom is useful as well. And then certainly we have support groups, whether it's cancer, or you've lost a spouse, or you have issues with health. That there are certain specialty groups that focus on these things, can be very useful as well as a resource. Okay, so we're at the halfway point, and this is that Bread's stress management tool that I was talking about. I use the word cure in quotes because it's not really a cure, but I hope so, right? Breathing, relaxation, exercise, attitude, diet, and sleep, and we'll go through these. We're a sleep-deprived culture. Let's get some sleep, pre-sleep rituals: cooler room, darkness, white noise, no screen activity at least a couple hours before. Usually 3 hours stop eating before I go to bed, 2 hours stop drinking anything that's fluid, and 1 hour stop looking at your phone, right? 7 to 8 hours seems to be best. Diet, careful on your feel-good foods, careful with your blood sugar, right? That protein tends to be the thing that's most effective for us, and carbs is the stuff that gives us the most weight gain, right? Attitude, relentlessly positive. Exercise 3 to 5 times a week if you can, at least 30 minutes. Most successful tends to be walking. By yourself where it's safe, with colleagues, with pets, family members, that type of thing. I don't think you can walk fish, but dogs are a good choice. Relaxing your body, 1 time a day that you can choose for 5 minutes, or 1 time a day you can choose for 10 minutes. Working up to maybe 20 minutes a day. I've been doing this for over 35 years. It works for me. And then breathing slowly and deeply under stress, on the telephone, face to face, in traffic, talking to colleagues, talking to taxpayers, customers, visitors, vendors, coworkers, bosses. Talking to people in your personal life, that your breathing is slow and deep, that you're trying to physically manage the stressful hormones, the stressful chemicals that invade your body in stressful situations by slowing down your breathing. It oxygenates your brain, makes you make better decisions, helps out a lot. So sometimes you may hear people talking about the way that guided imagery or mindfulness meditation really focuses on the breathing. If you're a yoga person, and I do yoga in and out, depending on how my low back feels, you know, I'll do it for a couple months and then stop for a while and then a couple months again. I'm not the most flexible cat in the world, and I don't have the greatest balance either. The 1 foot stuff usually puts me down. But you'll see that mindfulness meditation is really focused on the breathing. And so whether you call it focused relaxation or guided imagery, or you can have a mantra, which is transcendental meditation, or what some people call self-hypnosis, it's really about the breathing. And one of my colleagues says, focus on the pauses. You have an inhale, a little pause before the transition to the exhale. Then at the bottom of the exhale, you have a little pause, just a fraction of a second before you focus on the next inhale. Just focus on the pauses. Count them if you like, right? Look at not breathing as in changing your breathing, not look at breathing as in I have to speed it up or slow it down. Just say I'm going to inhale, there's a little pause, and then I'm going to exhale. At the bottom of the exhale, there's a little pause, and I'm going to inhale again. And do that for 5 minutes. Guess what? That's mindfulness meditation. Function, it does a lot to change your body chemistry and your perspective, your mental perspective. So safe and quiet place, 5 minutes, 1 minute, 2 minutes, up to 10 minutes a day if you can. 20 minutes a day is what I try to do. 20 minutes tends to be about my sweet spot. It's kind of like exercise. You know, I ran marathons and half marathons. I've been lifting weights since I was 13 years old. Longer than about 45 minutes tends to be about the max. I mean, over 45 minutes tends to be overkill. I mean, even the best fitness people in the world will say, you know, too much is not better thing. So up to 20 minutes, kind of the sweet spot. We look at people who are long time meditators. They're usually around 20 minutes or so, sometimes half hour, sometimes an hour, but usually 20 minutes is kind of a nice sweet spot. What it does for the breathing and the slowing down of things and kind of the reboot, helps your blood pressure and pulse rate. It lowers your metabolism. It helps you expand and improve not only your intake of oxygen, but your exhaling of CO2. It has benefits that we've seen medically that connect to your immune system, anti-aging function, and fight off disease. It's not a miracle cure, but it goes a lot. If we look at MRI studies, we look at the work of John Kabat-Zinn, that's K-A-B-O-T, Zinn, Z-I-N-N, John Kabat-Zinn. He created a stress management program in Massachusetts at Harvard and at the medical center there, Massachusetts General, where he was been teaching meditation to cancer patients for, 40 years. And the benefit that it has to people in terms of giving them hope and control and helping with what they are facing in terms of these life-threatening issues, all beneficial beneficial due to meditation. So we talked about exercise, 3 to 5 days a week. Now, every single day, you know, running 5 miles, if you're in shape for it and can do it, fine, but we need downtime. You need relaxation time. You need recovery time. Your muscles need to reabsorb what has happened to them before you can get back in it again. So for me, 3 to 5 days a week, usually walk one day, lift weights the next, walk one day, lift weights the next, etc., so that I get a little bit of downtime. Some days I do nothing. Some days I'll do both in one day, depending on how I feel. But it is a function of my life that it says this is about what keeps me healthy cardiovascularly. And not only that, it burns stress. It helps me sleep, and it makes me a little bit more focused on what I eat. Attitude. So look at that second piece there. We talked about negative self-talk. We talked about going on a news diet. We talked about the value of being relentlessly positive. I will discover a solution. I will get this job. I will land this client. I will be able to solve this problem. I will address this issue in my family successfully. We talked about those, but look at the middle piece. The Zen moment says, what is good about the situation that I'm in? You're sitting in traffic. It's rush hour. You want to get home. What's good about that moment? Well, it's quiet. You can listen to what you want on the radio. You can have a soda or a cup of coffee as you're driving home. You can focus on your thoughts. It's peaceful. No one's bothering you, making any demands. Just drive the car safely and accurately until you get home. You're washing the dishes. It's no fun. Well, what's the Zen moment? Well, I just ate. I'm in my house, my apartment, my mobile home, my condo, whatever it happens to be. I am messing around with plates. The water's warm and soapy. I'm going to put them in the dishwasher or wash them and put them away. What's the Zen moment about that? It's kind of peaceful. Look at the bubbles, right? Then you think about bad things that happen. Your grandmother passes away, and you say, what could possibly be the Zen moment about this, Steve? You say, well, she's in hospice care. We got to say our goodbyes. She passed peacefully from one world to the other. She lived a long life. I try to look at, in terms of relentlessly positive, those situations in my life go, this sucks, except for I can see a little bit of glimmer of hope, a little bit of silver lining in this particular thing. It may be small and it may be brief, but it helps. It's not all horrible. Sometimes there's good in lots of things. Diet, careful with the carbs, usually midday for those. Think about one of those truck tire bagels that you get from the bagel shop is about 70 carbs, right? Proteins tends to be better. Smoothies, I just had one before we started here. Egg whites, stuff like that. Try to go to bed a little bit hungry. Think about what most of the athletes do. They try to eat as healthy as possible, 5 to 6 good days and maybe 1 or 2 cheat days. Don't go crazy with 7 pizzas, but it's okay to have a little chocolate, a little pizza once in a while. Careful with caffeine, alcohol, fats, and sugars. Those are usually the biggest things that harm us in terms of diet. And what we're discovering, and this is sad news for some of us, is that alcohol does not have the medicinal benefits that we used to think. We thought in the old days that one glass of wine has medicinal benefits from the grape flavonoids and all this other stuff. And what we're discovering that alcohol is a total body poison. There is no medicinal value to it. It used to be 1 to 2 drinks was heart healthy per day. Now that number has been turned to 0. So if you're having trouble with sleep, if you're having trouble with depression, if you're having trouble with anger, if you're having trouble with feeling sluggish, alcohol is usually connected to a lot of those things. And when people go on dry months, right, to say I'm not going to drink, in all of June or whatever it happens to be, they sometimes get offended where they say, I don't need this every day. I don't need it all the time. Maybe once in a while for social events, but it doesn't control me or connect me to feeling better. I have other opportunities to do that. Same as caffeine. We find that caffeine has a long, what are called half-life. So a 2 o'clock in the afternoon Starbucks run can affect you deep into the evening. And so probably best use of caffeine is right around before noontime or a little bit after. After that, it starts to really affect our sleep. And then the other toughest part of stress management is that we eat feel-good foods sometimes, and just the main category of feel-good food is something that's sugar. And those things are what adds to the diabetes and obesity epidemics in our culture. And so a little bit of cognitive care in terms of those issues for you can help a lot. And then the last one, think about sleep as something that's as important as exercise. It's as important as diet. You sleep in 90-minute cycles, which means if you ever wake up groggy, that means you usually woke up in the middle of a 90-minute cycle. If you wake up refreshed, even though you only slept for 4 or 5 hours, you had to get up and do something or catch a plane or something like that. It happens to me all the time. If I wake up at the end of a 90-minute cycle, I tend to feel better and a little bit more energized. So program yourself to say, it takes me 15 minutes, half hour to fall asleep. Let me look and say, if I go to bed at 11:30, 90 minutes forward to that, 1 o'clock, 2:30, 5, or I'm sorry, 4, 5:30, 7 o'clock. If I wake up at 7, that tends to be at the end of a 90-minute cycle. I can function a little bit better. Pre-sleep rituals, start to wind down, start to use things that are calming and peaceful. Be careful of having arguments in the bedroom, right? The bedroom is designed for a couple things. Sleep's one, we can guess what the other is. But bedroom's not designed for screaming and financial arguments and arguing with your kids or spouse or partner. Go to another room for that. The bedroom is designed to be a place of peace and comfort. Cooler tends to be better. Dark as you can make it. Put black electrical tape over all the little white, the little yellow and blue and red lights, LED lights that we see for all our devices. We want the room as dark as possible, as quiet as possible, maybe a fan, maybe white noise, as peaceful as possible. Minimize your blue light exposure before you go to bed. At least an hour, maybe 2 hours, you're not looking at your phone. Careful with pills, Ambien, stuff like that can be highly addictive. People have a lot of side effects. And then don't worry about occasional insomnia. Everybody gets it. But start to focus on it if it becomes a thing that happens all the time, because your sleep is important. You've got to have what's called good sleep hygiene. So think a little bit about the technology of our world today, and is it making you happy or unhappy? And going on a news diet is a part of our stress management conversation, and minimizing your exposure prior to sleep is part of our issue in terms of good sleep and stress management. But the other part is, can you ignore and minimize and not become distracted by our devices? I mean, they're never going away, but a lot of people become addicted to them or feel addicted to them, where they say, I have to have my phone near me, or I have to look at it all the time, or I have to have it. If there's a 2-second break in life, I'm looking at my phone. You've got to figure out ways to take yourself off that sort of electronic treadmill, because it's tiring. And it's also, a lot of it is negative, and a lot of the stuff burns a lot of time you could be doing with other things. So a couple of mindfulness meditation apps that I like, I've used them both. They start off free, and then they have the subscription. Headspace is done by a guy named Andy Puddicombe. Puddicombe was a Buddhist priest. He was in England. He has a beautiful narration voice for his meditation, very peaceful. And he was at a party in his 20s, and his sister was standing next to him in the street, and a guy came up with a car and ran over a bunch of people, and including killed his sister. As a result of that event, he went to India and Pakistan and Tibet and became a Buddhist priest for, I think, probably 6, 7, 8 years. Came back, and his experiences, he moved to California and started Headspace. Headspace is probably the most popular mindfulness meditation app there is. There's also free Headspace programs. I think they're 15 or 20 minutes segments on Netflix, and I've watched a lot of those, and they're great. The other one is 10% Happier with Dan Harris. Dan Harris used to be the host of Good Morning America on the weekends, and also Nightline on ABC. I know him a little bit through some of my media pals, and he has a podcast called 10% Happier, and a couple of books. The first book was called 10% Happier, which he said is, if a skeptical, fidgety guy like me can get a 10% improvement in his personal and professional life and relationships by meditating, then that's a win. I'll take it. That's where 10% Happier came from. So Dan Harris has been very useful to me in terms of demystifying some of the woo-woo factor of mindfulness meditation, and both Headspace and 10% Happier are well worth looking into. Let's talk a little bit about, before we do our practice exercise, let's talk a little bit about anger. And you think about all the things that anger does to you in terms of depression, and people that have anger problems end up in jail, failed relationships with their kids and spouse and partner. It's not just anger management. I use the word mastery because I think it's more important. I'm careful with my words. I write books. I'm careful with how I speak. Anger management says that I'm just trying to keep it under control. Mastery says that I am not allowing it to ruin my life. Take a pause before you speak. 1 second of brain time is a million years. Sometimes people lash out and say mean things, which they would not do if they just took a moment to catch their breath. Breathe slowly. Keep your voice down. Agree to disagree. There's sometimes in the world where you say, there's nothing I can say that's going to change this person's perspective. Stop your desire to be right. Think about the consequences of anger sooner, on my personal relationships, on my professional relationships, my kids, I'm working on a book right now, which I've been tinkering around with for a while on road rage. If you put in Steve Albrecht and road rage, I come up not as a road rager, but as a speaker about it all around the United States and around the world. I've spoken about road rage in South Africa and Thailand and Malaysia and Australia and Canada. I don't know why I'm the road rage guy, but in looking at road rage, think about what message it sends to your kids. What message does it send to your partner when you're raging, right? Recognize your hot buttons. Is it your hair, your weight, your body type? Is it your sense of self that people that are mean and toxic around you push your hot buttons? And then walk out. Just say, this is not for me. I don't have to keep hitting the tennis ball back and forth. And that's one of the things I think about a lot with anger management. If you don't play, the other person just hits the tennis ball and the ball rolls away. Stop hitting it back and forth. Stop re-engaging. And it's easy to think about all these things. It takes courage to do these things for anger mastery. Okay, tough situations in your life. The passage of time and talking with caring people, doesn't have to be a therapist, but somebody who you care about and who cares about you can do a lot to feeling better. Tragedies and traumas that we all experience, the passage of time blurs the intensity. Someone dies in your family, it's horrible, it's awful, it's happened to me, but your response to it is different 1 year later than it is, 2 days after it's happened. The passage of time blurs the intensity, but also talking with people, and this is a part for men to get into, which is stop, stuffing everything down and becoming that volcano, that dragon of fire that you don't get help for. Talking with people who care about you and you care about, whether it's therapeutic conversation or whether it's people in your life that are supportive of you, that say, hey, I'm having a rough time. Can I tell you about what's going on? They will do that for you. It's valuable. And the last one, thought stopping, is saying to yourself, I will not continue to dwell. If it's negative, I'm going to stop thinking about it. If it's a conversation I had with somebody that didn't go well, if it's a project I'm working on that didn't go well, if it's some situation that I saw or experienced that didn't go well, I'm going to stop. And thought stopping just says, stop talking about it, stop thinking about it. And that's the voice that you hear inside your head that says, I'm not going to do this anymore. So I stop ruminating, I stop projecting, and I stop focusing over and over in this sort of cyclical toxic behavior. Okay. Wellness in the workplace, health days, gym memberships, on-site gym activities, yoga, meditation, nap rooms. These are all things we've seen, especially Fortune 500 companies do. Job sharing, telecommuting, flex time, smoking cessation problems. Still about 23, 24% of people smoke in the United States. It always surprises me when I go places that people smoke, like Vegas, right? Access to wellness programs, to their benefits and health plans. Taking 6 months sabbatical, 1 year sabbatical. Take your mental health days. This idea that you save up 10,000 hours of vacation, then they win, right? That's not what we want. I'm not saying don't do your job, but I'm saying take your mental health days, take your floating holidays, take your vacation days. And then one rule of thumb seems to make sense, stress management wise, no emails before or after dark. Okay, last thing here. We'll talk about a little focused relaxation, and there's three things that you can do. One is that you can just focus on your breathing, focusing on those turning points. Inhale, little pause, exhale, little pause before the next inhale, focus on the turning points, right? Count them or just focus on them, just for a couple of moments with your eyes closed, someplace safe. Second, pretty common, head to toe or toe to head muscle relaxation. Start with the lines in your forehead, go to that stress in the back of your neck, move to your jaw. Drop down to your shoulder blades, drop down to your calves or other places that you store tension, your feet, right? Head to toe, toe to head, right? That'll take, if you do that from head to toe and toe to head, that'll take 5 minutes right there. Then the last one, choose your private getaway place. What is the place that you can sit at? It's safe, nothing bad's ever happened there. That's good for you to be there. Maybe you want to be there, you're with someone you care about or by yourself, it exists or it doesn't, or you want to go there. Choose a color that you can associate with relaxation. So when you see that color in nature or in the world, it connects you back to being relaxed. Think about a finger touch, touching your thumb and first finger together, or your thumb and second finger or third finger or pinky finger together with your thumb. Says it's time to relax. And then choose a word. For me, my word is Pax, right? P-A-X, that's the Latin word for peace. So when I say Pax, P-A-X, that means peace, right? So choose a word which is one syllable, or it's peace, or choose a word that says relaxation to you and focus just on that word. So private getaway place, a color you associate with relaxation, the finger touch, the chosen word, all things can be very useful. So think about this for a second. And just if you're safe where it's to do so, right? You're not sitting in the car, driving in traffic, and there's nothing that you have to do work-wise for this exact moment. Just take a couple seconds with me and take a deep breath and then close your eyes. With your eyes closed, all you have to focus on is not how fast you breathe or slow it down or speed it up, just your breath. You have an inhale. At the top of the inhale, you see a little shift, a little transition to the exhale. At the bottom of the exhale, a little shift, a little transition to the next inhale. For a couple of moments, just think about your private getaway place. Think about the color that you associate with stress management and relaxation. Think about touching your thumb and first finger or second or third or pinky finger together, just as a subtle small gesture that you can do as a relaxation point. Private getaway place, color, touching your thumb and first or second or third, fourth finger together, and then thinking about a word, the word that you associate with relaxation, the word that you associate with safety, with comfort, with peace, the word that you associate with a connection to your spiritual self or your physical self, a word that you associate with when you hear it and say it inside your mind, it's peaceful to you, it's useful to you. Couple seconds, focus on your breathing. Don't have to worry about speeding it up or slowing it down. Don't have to worry about breathing through your nose. Breathe through your mouth if you want to. You can take as deep an inhalation as you want or as long as exhalation as you want, just for a couple moments. Sometimes counting your breath can be useful. Start at the number 100, go down to 99, down to 98, and on and on. Sometimes starting at the number 1, go to 2, go to 3, and on up to 100. You get lost, go back to the last number you remember. If you get tired, start to focus on your breathing a little bit more concentrated, on your surroundings, what it feels like to sit, what it feels like with your feet on the floor, what it feels like with your back against the chair. Focus on these breathing techniques so that you go from 100 down to 1, from 1 up to 100. Carefully, slowly, peacefully. One more deep breath and we'll come back to full attention, full concentration, full alertness. When you open your eyes, you'll have full attention, full alert, full concentration. Remember what we talked about, remembering the value of breathing on your own terms when you can do so safely, carefully, peacefully. Okay, there's my dogs. When I look at them, it gives me joy. What do you look at on your phone, or what do you see in nature that gives you joy? Who do you hang out with? Who do you associate with personally and professionally that makes you feel good about you and that gives you joy? And that can be that person for the time and talking as necessary. So thanks everybody for your time and attention. Covered a lot in a short period of time, 1 hour. Stress management, don't forget the BREADS acronym: breathing, relaxation, exercise, attitude, diet, and sleep. Amanda, back over to you. If we have any questions, happy to take them.
I don't have any questions, but I just have to say that I wonder if the pugs bring you extra joy with all the snarfling and the white noise that you get from all that. No.
And the fur everywhere, that's another part. And the running around barking at everybody.
I love pugs. But yeah, actually, I don't have any questions that came in specific to the material. So we are good to go. Very thorough presentation. So I'm going to say thank you to everybody for attending today's webinar presented by Heffernan. We will send information by email with instructions on how to access a copy of the presentation on our website. Thank you again, Dr. Albrecht, for your time and expertise today. And we hope all the attendees found today's webinar to be a valuable use of time. Be sure to join us on July 11th for our Helping Business Owners Sleep at Night webinar. So thank you, everybody, and have a safe day.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.